Now we are so excited that in this theme of people taking over our weekly Hana here at First Unitarian Church of Honolulu, that one of our very own, our consulting director of religious education, the wonderful Dr. Michele Townsend Grove, will sort of be taking over, but we're kind of doing it together, our Hana this evening to talk about the future of our learning community, our religious education, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it spiritual development, but we're going to talk about all that today and hear about what's coming up for us and some ideas and hear from you. So Dr. Michele, do you want to say hi and tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
I do. Oh, it's so good to be with you all. Thank you for having me for this ritual that you all have on Tuesday evenings. Um, there is so much that's going on and so many different things which are kind of happening in and around education with the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu. And yet tonight we're really going to focus in on adult learning. And that doesn't mean we won't also talk about children, youth, and family learning because there's a real intersection. But I have the feeling that there's some adult learning ideas that you all would also like to explore. So tonight we're really going to look at that theme. And one of the people that I also want to raise up in this one is Nan. Nan, you have been a consultant over the past couple of months as we played with ideas around this. So as we talk about adult learning, it wouldn't be fair to also say thank you for the work and the wisdom that you have brought to this. So on that, first of all, can everybody give a thank you to Nan? Thank you very much. and you know, we're going to explore some ideas, and there's going to be some places where you all get to share some of your thoughts. You know, so for example, how is it that the pandemic of the past couple of months, the present time, and the near future, how is it affecting your desire to gather for learning experiences? What kinds of things have you been in? What kinds of things have you done interacting wise that you have said, now I want to learn more and I want to dig deeper? Now, and other questions are, what do you just have a hankering about? What's something that you've been wanting to learn more about that relates to Unitarian Universalist values and the values that your congregation holds dear, that you would really like to dig deep into with adults and with multi-generational learning? Now, don't answer those questions yet. I wanted to say them up front because later when I bring them up, they won't be a surprise to you. But can I open up the floor? And first of all, I would like to ask Reverend TJ to talk about some ideas that you have had around adult learning. Reverend TJ, is this an okay time? You think you're ready at any point?
It is.
And I'm going to circle back around and I'm going to talk about some stuff that Nan and I have been talking about. And at that point, Nan, I might say, hey, do you have anything to add? How's that sound? Sound good? So, okay, so think about adult learning and its role in this congregation. Reverend TJ, what are some of the things you've been thinking about?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Michele. Some of the things I've been thinking about is I enjoyed teaching the online Hana once a month version of the Beloved Community class we did in early part of the summer, end of spring. And I think it was fun to talk a little bit about theology, but I think there was I've noticed that people were a little more, I think that people enjoyed the third class the most, where we were talking about what we really were living, like how this was kind of living. And so I've been thinking about what are experiences that are a little more interactive, you know, with folks, helping one another get through things and work on things. And so I had sort of two ideas. It's it's just funny because out of my eye, David and Junko's iPad has the new bionic ability to focus on one or the other. So as she goes out of the screen, it focuses on David. And anyways, it's just pulling my eye. So one of the things I've been thinking about are these more almost workshopy conversational pieces, which is, I think, something that people would enjoy. And the two areas that have come about is I know there's a lot of interest and desire to talk more in the way that, and I see Joel is here with us, but to have more discussions about end of life and about what that looks like for folks. And Joel and I had talked a little bit just by email, and one of the things we had talked about, or I had kind of mentioned, was setting up a forum that's less reliant on Joel to teach it, and more of a time for us to start having an open, available conversation and invite all who want to come, including those who know a lot or have some experience that they want to share. So end of life, ways of looking at that, whether that's how we celebrate, whether it's really practical questions about what we want the end of our lives to look like, the meaning we have in our lives. One of the things a lot of people have brought up are the kinds of legacies we leave, a sort of moral or ethical legacy we leave to those we love, or the institutions that we want to see grow or change. So those are some of the things that I want to start continuing in the spring, sort of, early winter or midwinter into spring. And then the other area that I'd like to keep looking at, or start looking at, which I thought might be fun. I don't really know how many people will be interested in this, but what I was thinking of doing was doing a sermon writing workshop. Well, Siri, really a writing workshop. It doesn't have to be a sermon, but that's sort of the frame in which we would work on it. So to have that kind of experience, because I am going on sabbatical June 1 through August 30th. I'm taking 3 months out of the available 4, I think, something like that. And so it would be very nice to whoever is going to be here as my sabbatical minister, or whatever sort of arrangement we have, to know that there's some sermons that have been worked on and that are ready to go. So it has a dual function. The other is just, it's an extremely fun kind of experience. There's a form to work with, multiple forms to work with. It's very flexible. It's very personal. There's theology in it, but it's more practical. It's how we live theology. And so both of these ideas are ones that are really, instead of just saying what is theology, it's saying, like, how do we live these things? And so those are the two things I was thinking of personally offering, not just that will be offered, to facilitate some of those discussions, and then also to lead a sermon writing workshop. So that's where we're kind of going.
Thank you for that. Thank you. You see, this is all of a sudden, you've named 3 very creative and very different kinds of things. And it's not just that you named them that are different in subject matter. They're also different in methodology. I mean, if you think about it, you would be interacting with material in very different ways if you're doing a sermon writing than if, say, you are doing a study discussion around end of life. So I really appreciate that a lot. So, and in a moment, I'm going to ask this group if anything really stands out to you. But first, know this. Nan and I have also talked about the fact that doing some adult learning around Unitarian Universalist history would be a really good topic. The history of Unitarian Universalism is rich, it's varied, and it's story laden. And so in it can be a great way to explore some of your own congregation's values by looking at some of those stories. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that we've talked about is, what are some things that we can do with and for parents? Where is it that we can interact with parents in learning, and in ways that aren't heavy laden with like a lot of prep, but where we can come together and engage in discussion? Nan, can I peg you a minute? Do you have anything that you would add to this? Because I'm kind of summarizing.
I would add grandparents.
That's right. You did, and that was a really helpful thing, that whatever we do, with parents that we do the opening up to the grandparent community that's a part of that. That's great. Yep. See, so those are some of the things. So I'm going to throw out one new edgy idea that I have been working on that I've actually been thinking about in a number of contexts. This congregation is one. There's some congregations on the mainland that I think could benefit from this as well. And it's one that I wanted to tell you all about, not just because I think it would be a fun way to engage in learning as adults and as families, but also because it lifts up this amazing publishing house in Washington, D.C. Okay, so raise your hand if you have ever heard about Shout Mouse Press. Anybody? Nobody? Okay, so Shout Mouse Press is a small publishing house in DC whose goal is to lift the voices of young BIPOC writers, usually high school students, sometimes young adults, and illustrators. And what's really neat is that all of these books, even if they're children's books, they are books that speak to all ages. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to show you. Ready? For example, this one. You see it? Let's see. Shayla's Shutdown Solution. This is written by high school students. Okay. And it's about a young girl who lives in Washington, D.C.
More to the center of the camera.
Oh, say that again?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now we can't. I think he wants you to hold it in the center.
Oh, okay. Ready? I can hold it still. Can you all see it okay?
Yeah, there's a glare on it, which is the problem.
There is a glare.
There, that's good.
Is that better? But then it's tilted. Yeah, I'm still working on lighting when it comes dark here. When it's light out, I don't have any problem. And so anyway, I will put the thing, but you'll be able to see, look up. I'm going to put this in the chat so that later, if you want to get on, all you have to do is look for Shout Mouse Press, Washington, D.C. Here's another one. This one was this is one of my favorites. Now I have a green screen and this is a green book. And so it's actually going to make it fuzzy just because I'm using a green screen. It's called And Justice for Who? And it's about two high school friends. And both of the friends have different beliefs about the police. Are they good or are they bad? And they debate each other, and then they have an experience that helps them to process it. It's a children's book with great illustrations, and yet it's not a children's book. Another one, Brianna Marches Through Time, about a young girl in DC learning how to march for social justice. And then there's this whole group of books from these young writers, like The Day Tejan Got Shot. And these are writers who are speaking from their perspective about that event. And then I'm going to show you one more. There's a whole series by and for incarcerated youth. The Untold Story of the Real Me is one, and there's many of these. So think about it. We could actually engage in learning where families and adults are reading books together. And maybe we have times when just the kids talk about it. Maybe we have times the youth talk about it. Maybe we have time just the parents talk about it. Maybe we have times the adults just talk about it. And maybe there are times we all talk about it. It's a way of talking about story that also help us to talk about things we really value and subjects in which we want to engage. So I am presenting that to you, not to say we have to do it, but it does two things. One is that it presents a subject matter that is definitely of value from your congregation. The second is I am really working hard to find new ways to engage in learning. And sometimes that learning is in the traditional models, like us getting together in person or online for a class in peer-related groups, children, youth, adults, parents, etc. But where is it that we also learn in other ways? And how do we lift those ways up so that we're not like, oh, that bores me, but that we can actually engage? And that's a part of the challenge that I want to bring to Hana tonight. What are some of those new ways of learning where we can intersect not just the generations, but our different ideas? So with that, I'm going to back up and I'm just going to ask you all some questions. The first one is, where are you right now when it comes to learning as a part of the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu? Where is your spirit? What's your interest? And what kinds of things are even, maybe dare say, holding you back to say, no, I don't have the bandwidth now because. So in other words, where are you engaged and excited? And where are you like, I need just to step back a bit? Where are you with learning? I open the floor. Does anybody want to share?
I know this is very weird feeling having to speak during Hana. Normally it's a bit of a show, but just think about it. What are some of the things coming up that Dr. Michelle's asking us? I see David's hand. Go ahead, David, then Sue, then Carol.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if this is an appropriate response to what you're putting out, but I'll just say that I recently subscribed to a program online called Masterclass, and I'd like to be I'd be interested to know, with show of hands or whatever, if anyone else has known of it or subscribed to it. But it is a series of a few hundred at this point, and a growing list of masters in various fields, diverse fields, who more than just a headshot, because there's some production values to it, makes it interesting, but it's spiritual, food, gardening, whatever, a vast array of subjects taught. And it's a passive learning thing, in that I get to sit in front of the screen and really take it in, but I'm sitting in front of, at the feet of a master, and I've seen a few of them so far. Joan and I have shared a few, and they're substantial and engaging and inspiring.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And just for a show of hands, has anybody either familiar with or has taken one of the masterclass series? I think I have, but I have to check to make sure what I'm thinking of is of that.
There is a fee. Yeah, it's $180 a year, and that it continues. I mean, as a re-up every year, I guess, but you can cancel it at any time. And I just think it's so well worth it, and the variety of speakers and subjects of focus is astonishing.
Thank you. And Reverend TJ, can I hand it back to you to do the MC on this, because you had people lined up to speak really well, and then I jumped in. So
That's all right. Yeah, it's we're gonna go to Sue Yamani Carpenter, then Carol Amos, and then Allison Jacobs. Go ahead, Sue.
Thank you. Okay. We've been listening to stories in Hawaiian during our services, and it's been one of my missions to become a better, I guess, I don't know if I could say speaker, but at least even a reader of Hawaiian. And I would really appreciate if, when we get these stories that are given to us, both in, the spoken Hawaiian and then the English translation, if some of us who are really interested in learning Hawaiian would be able to get this story in the written Hawaiian and, be able to learn, more that way. That's how I learned Japanese, actually, when I was in Japan. While I had taken classes here before I went to Japan in Japanese, one of the best ways of learning for me was taking Japanese children's stories and just dissecting them and learning the language that way. And I do feel that as Unitarian Universalists here in Hawaii, it's important that we continue to grow in our understanding of Hawaiian culture. And for me, this would be an important way of doing it. So anyway, thank you.
Well, stay tuned for Sunday worship, where we'll have a Hawaiian story. And if Uncle Gabriel is nice enough, and I let him know that people would like to see the translation, I'm sure he'll do it in a way that can be transmitted to people. So, yeah. Great. Thanks, Sue. So we'll go to Carol, and then we'll ask Allison if her hand was up because she knows about masterclass or if she wants to say something. So first we'll go to Carol.
Hi. I realize how little I know about Unitarian Universalists. When we had that questions, it was embarrassing how little I know. And I've been going to the Unitarian Church since 2008. When did you come, Rick?
I think 2017 or 2018 is when I think you started coming in 2017, I think.
The same year, the same month, practically, that you came, I came.
Correct. Yep.
So it was 2017?
Yep.
Oh, wow. So 4 years, and I don't really know a whole lot. And it was really kind of embarrassing that I realized that the people that have been around for a long, long time, they were the ones that were answering the questions. And then the rest of us, we were just looking like, whoa, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, this is how I was feeling anyway. And I would like to have some, and I go faithfully every month to the Path to Engage. What's it called?
Path to Engagement.
Path to Engagement, yeah.
And I love it, but I realized how much I didn't know. And Catherine, you were one of the ones that do a lot of stuff.
Well, you stick around for 50 years, Carol, you'll know some more too.
By osmosis, I hope, but I like to have some, like a real class, or classes. Because when I was going through training with United Church Religious Science, we have 4 years of classes to become a practitioner. And the same kind of thing with Unity. You have all of these classes that you become a teacher, then there's a lot of classes, and then to become a minister, there's a lot of classes after that. And I would like to have some classes on, the organization that I'm involved with.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, it would be fun. I could use a little brush up myself. And Allison, you had your hand up. I didn't know if it was because you were saying you're familiar with masterclass or if you wanted to say something.
It was because I'm familiar with masterclass, but now that I have the opportunity.
Now that you got the microphone, that's right.
Well, I'm excited about the class, about learning more about Unitarian Universalists, because even though I'm a second generation, doesn't mean they taught me anything about it. About the biggest claim to fame that I have is that I went to Antioch College, which was founded by a Unitarian. So that was that's like my claim to fame with that. So yeah, I'm interested in finding out more.
Great. And Kathy, I see your hand, and then we'll go to Catherine.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the opportunity for the sermon writing class, and I really liked the phrase "lived theology," and it sort of resonates with the book titles and the descriptions that we were given a few minutes ago. I mean, many of those issues have to do with the beliefs that we hold dear. And so I'm just kind of reflecting on how those all might fit together.
Thanks, Kathy. And I think fitting together is definitely one of the things Dr. Michele was talking about. It's like we start with this, but then one thing leads to another, and then one thing informs something else. And that's kind of the beauty of how a program, can
Right.
develop and grow. But I saw Catherine Graham's hand also. Hi, Catherine.
Hi. So one of the things I'm interested in is a class on your book, TJ. We haven't followed up on that, and I'm interested in that. And the other thing is going back into my archives here. There was a period in time when we just we had kind of like a, I don't know, anyway, my brain's not working. But anyway, we opened it up to the congregation saying, what would you like to teach? And different people came forward with things they wanted to teach. And it was great. We had a drawing on the right side of the brain class, and we had the following the Joseph Campbell tape class, and we had all kinds of different things. And this lasted for, I don't know, it didn't last very long, maybe a year or two. But that's another thing we can do to get more people actually involved in offering things that are, close to their hearts and that they touch their talents and skills.
Yeah, when I arrived, I think Nancy Schilt was teaching a beginning Hawaiian class,
right?
or a working group in the church when I came.
Right.
So, one of the things I see, there's a little bit of, not a lull, but no one's raising their hand right now. But I wanted to just draw attention to one of the things Dr. Michele asked, which was kind of the beginning of, is also, are there questions around comfort for folks? And I know we're entering this liminal space of perhaps some kind of gathering in person. What I have said all along is that really everything in the church forever now will have an online available option or component. So there is that, but I think she is, I don't want to speak to you, Dr. Michele, but
No, you're right on though. And to me, there's two parts of it. It's comfort for gathering, so what format feels comfortable for you. But there's another piece, and that is COVID fatigue. The COVID has taken a lot of our bandwidth. And because of that, things that we normally used to engage in, we just don't have the energy for right now. And that's totally appropriate. And on the flip side, because of the pandemic, we have renewed energy to do things like gather and learn. So everybody's very different and coming at this. So it's both. It's both the physical, how do you want to gather? And it's also, do you have the energy or the enthusiasm to gather, to be a part of learning communities with the Unitarian congregation?
So that's an open question for folks. I don't mind answering it first. The thought that comes to mind is that I would love to gather. Everyone can just come to wherever I am. As long as I'm not saying that that's how I feel, but I'm saying that there might be some feeling of, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm so used to doing this in my living room. I don't, want to travel. And, but other folks, other members of ours during this time have moved farther away from our church than they used to live. So that's another thing I wanted to kind of hold up as we're kind of thinking about what are our dream wishes about how we would gather if there's a way to gather. That's
I
something
like
I'm
that
kind of
too.
thinking of. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
And we also have
Yeah,
folks
what
in
are
this
y'all
very
thinking?
meeting on other islands. So
Oh, that's cool. What are you all thinking? What are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling like I really need some in-person contact. And, I did have Thanksgiving with Chalice Circle folks, and that was just really lovely. And I just kind of die sitting here all by myself, even on Zoom calls. So I need in-person contact.
Kathy, go ahead. I see your hand. Thank you, Catherine.
Well, as you all know, gathering means something slightly different from me and the other people that are watching you from the Big Island. And we have actually talked about flying over there all together when we can gather in person, just to introduce ourselves. But we can't do that on a regular basis. So us, our gathering has to be online mostly. And then once in a while, a big splurge and flying over there. So we have a little different definition, but we're enthusiastic about it and really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Kathy. And I see David's hand, and then we'll go to Dan Carpenter, then Marie, then Junko. I see you trying to unmute. Are you having some kind of, is your iPad being mean to you?
David,
Oh,
are you trying to talk, David?
oh, okay. I'll lower the hand. Okay.
Your hand is up. Okay.
All right. So we'll go to Dan, Dan Carpenter. Hi, Dan.
You're muted. Yeah.
He's getting Sue to do it. I can tell.
Oh,
Unmute, Sue.
Has to help.
There we go.
Okay.
There, it took a while.
The transmission seems to be very spotty here.
So
We're free. I'm getting,
my concern about meeting in person is that I think we're long past due to start doing it on Sunday. If we have family groups that are 6 feet apart in the sanctuary, and regulate how many and who, so that we can stay within reasonable boundaries. But I think it's important to start seeing people face to face. This is enough of this watching a computer screen stuff. I'm not interested in it. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Dan. I agree. Marie, and then we'll go to Junko.
Well, I feel both ways. I'm really happy for Zoom. It's brought people into my life that we don't, like you said, we don't see anymore. It's also brought all this that we wouldn't see, a few years back. But I'm also so ready for people, 3-dimensional live people. Every time I go to the church on Sunday morning, I don't like how it looks, meaning it's all a disarray, but I love seeing the people and can't wait for it, both the chairs and us, to be back together.
And Junko, we're going to go right to you. There's been some confusion about what's happening on Sunday mornings, and statements like Marie's are leading to it. There isn't like a select group of people who are gathering at the church for worship. It's only people who are participating actively in elements of worship. But we've gotten some calls and questions that they hear people laughing in the background or hear someone say something like Marie just said. And I just want to make really clear that right now it's all folks who are doing elements of worship and are vaccinated. Those are the only people in the building.
And masked.
And masked. Thank you. Go ahead, Junko.
Yes, well, I wanted to go back to what Dr. Michele said. And I think you were really right on in terms of being kind of fearful, and at the same time, love the ease of Zoom. I mean, I've become so lazy. It's just so wonderful that I can go to 3 meetings in a row because I'm just sitting in my, I mean, my life has become very efficient. And as Catherine brought up, we got together 10 of us, which was allowed in a large party room in our condo, and had a Thanksgiving gathering. And I tell you, it was so much work. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is what happens when we come together, I have to admit, Catherine, for a while I was grumbling. But once I saw everybody and we got together and we had such a wonderful time, I realized how important that was. And we just had a great time. We loved cleaning up afterwards and everything. So, those dichotomous feelings are there. And once I got a glimpse of it and embraced both of them, I'm ready to meet. So I wanted to say that.
That's helpful. Thank you. Yeah, you see, this is an amazing part of it. Reverend Sunshine Wolf does a piece on the UUA website, and I can send the link to you all. You all might have seen it already. I watch it 30 to 40 times because their words are so powerful. And one of the things that Reverend Wolf is talking about is the fact that we so want to get together, and then as we do, we notice the energy it takes, and we notice our anxieties, and we notice all these different things. For example, we notice that it's not the same as it used to be, and therefore we also have grief. And how do we bring all of that back with us as we're gathering? And so I wonder how we do that in these learning spaces just as much as worship. So thank you for that, Junko. That was neat. Does anybody else have thoughts? I wanted to leave space for your thinking and for your ideas.
I see Pierre's hand. Hi,
Pierre, go for it.
I was reminded of our weekends that we used to have at least once a year on the beach, and gathering that way in a whole different way. And they're always wonderful, and I'm sure you could construe them to be learning in some way or another. And I'm sorry that we haven't done that in a long time.
Nice. And these times might be some places where we can bring out some of these models. You see, one of the things I'm hearing from you all is not just what you want to learn, but how you want to learn. So for example, I made a note, David, when you were talking about the master class, how nice it was to kind of sit and listen and watch and to be able to absorb. Well, there's some things that we can take advantage of. There are some ways that we can do that as well. Sue, when you talked about learning, languages and doing it through children's stories, that's a method. So one of the things that I am listening for is not just what you want to learn about, but how you want to learn. And the other thing that I'm hearing is that you want to learn in community. You want to learn with each other, whether that's using technology so that your community can span many islands, or also getting together so you can actually see these 3-dimensional beings we call humans. Wouldn't that be fabulous? Yeah.
Catherine, go ahead. I see your hand.
Another one of the things, speaking of intergenerational sharing, and is when we went to camp, like Pierre talked about, when we spent the weekend on the beach, we had a no talent show. And the kids would come and do all kinds of fun things, handstands or whatever, and Pierre would sing, or Junko would do a hula. I mean, we had all kinds of wonderful things. And I'm wondering if there's not somewhere we could do that on Zoom. sometime for, maybe for, I don't know, Hana even, just do something silly like that, or have a Friday night gathering once a month where we do silly things like that. Anyway, just my idea. More work for TJ, but hey, what else has he got to do?
But no, I was just going to say, if you'd like to host that,
Yeah,
Catherine,
right.
you're welcome to my Zoom account anytime. I see Allison's. I don't mean to be dismissive. It's lovely, and if we can talk more about that,
No.
Allison, go ahead.
I love that idea. I was thinking about camp, and then Catherine raised that topic, and I would love to see us do camping again. It was so much fun and nice to be together, very informally, in a beautiful environment, and just relaxing and getting to know people that you don't normally get to spend time with. So somewhere on somebody's agenda, I want to put camping.
Fair enough.
It could be your platform for your presidency starting in July.
And there will be camping.
I think you'll have a successful election.
Yeah.
With that platform.
Count me in.
Yep, that was the best.
Any other thoughts or any other things that are being sparked by the group? Because the one thing I also would like to point out in this, which I think is really exciting, is the fact that learning happens all the time, and that it is a value of this congregation because it's a way in which you engage in other values. So learning is a value on its own, and it's also a vehicle to other values. The value of family, the value of the respect of everybody in community, the value of the Hawaiian culture and what it brings and all the people who are of the islands, etc. And I could go on and on and on. So think about it. You learn when you're in worship. You learn when you are at that Thanksgiving dinner. I bet you all learned something that day. You all learn on a camping trip. You all learn when you're just talking to somebody on the phone. So one of the things that is my hope is that we don't just look at learning and education as a program, but something that is happening all the time. And if you can lift that up and say every once in a while, I just learned something. Thank you for that gift. Then all of a sudden you have brought religious education to a very new level that's both valued and intersected, because everybody can be a learner and a teacher. And that is a great gift for this community. Any other thoughts? Reverend TJ, what about you? As you're hearing all of this, are you kind of hearing things or seeing things that are inspiring you or are new ahas?
I don't know if it's new ahas, but it's good to hear everything all together in the way that you're talking about learning being, more of a theme. And I think, part of the heritage we've gotten from Nan's tenure and Care and others is that this is a congregation that values learning of all kinds, and really has. And it excites me to hear folks taking the steps we need to show that value and to take the time and see the other, really what I'm looking forward to is maybe looking at growing our learning time together, our ways of experiencing and growing at the same time as the hopeful coming together, both physical and otherwise, as maybe a gentle bridge to getting back together again and experiencing those feelings of, oh, we're together, but now we're nervous and then we're back, and those kinds of pieces. I feel like the levels of learning, actually learning subjects, but also learning to be back together again. It seems like a really perfect vehicle for that kind of experimentation with comfort and with care, self-care, caring for others, because we can do it in smaller groups and things like that. So, but all of this is coming at the same time as the board is, just so everyone knows, is looking at a plan for reopening for Sundays. And that might be something to also consider, meaning that once we have a protocol in place, a lot of this, I do think it will feel easier. Like, there's me and 2 other people have been meeting. Now the board is meeting and really putting together something that will help everyone feel like, okay, we know what we're doing when we're together. This is how we're handling these kinds of situations. And I think with that in place, it might relieve some of the fear or some of the concerns about being together physically, while also helping us all learn how to include people who are not able to be with us for one reason or another at the same time. So this hybrid learning is going to be fascinating and exciting. So yeah.
I would agree. Oh, Nancy.
I was just thinking about a group that I've been involved in for almost 15 years now called Curious Women. It was based on a model of from Carla Allison, where we just get together and plan one event every month. And we have a planning session where we all say, okay, I'll take this month and this is what I am willing to do. And so it really takes the burden off of anybody, one person coordinating, because we have been meeting even on Zoom. We did games one time, somebody did, and we make things, and it's amazing how many things we have learned. So that's just an easy model where we can all be involved.
Curious you use.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. That's neat. Kathy has her hand up.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I'm just reflecting that gathering has taken on a new meaning for me. I used to just hop in my car and drive to wherever and jump out and go in and sit down and talk to everybody and go through the meeting and then make nice for a little bit and then go home. And what I'm aware of now is that there is much more meaning in getting together than there was in the past, that I have taken it for granted, this getting together. And now I'm aware that there's really a big deal. And I hadn't thought about that. So it's a much deeper meaning for me now to think about becoming part of a group. I'm never going to take going to a meeting the same way again as I did in the past. So thank you for this gift. It's really, really neat.
And thank you for sharing that insight that came to you. That's powerful. Wow. Any other thoughts? And Allison, thanks for the gift of your cat. That's so cool.
You can't see the other one. I got the cat a cat.
Nice. So, okay. So 2 closing thoughts. So the first one is, who here's learned something here tonight? Just raise your hand if you've learned something. I did. Right. See, so we are modeling this whole idea that learning is intersecting in all we do. The second thing to know, and I think this is food for fodder, let's think about this as we go forward. Multi-platform meetings are brilliant and they take work. And the work is only about 25% technology and 75% being mindful of the fact that gathered in a space where people are joining both in person and also on the screen, so 2-dimensionally and 3-dimensionally, that there's kind of a very different way and a culture and a covenant around how you gather is 75% of the work. So one of the things that I encourage the congregation to do, and I think that you will do, because Reverend TJ, I see you being mindful of this already, is the idea of how are you mindful to bring everybody into the group when some people join on screen and other people join in person? How is everybody included? It's possible that we might actually have to have learning opportunities to learn how to gather that way. And I think that would be a really good thing to do and would be a fun thing to do so that we can kind of create those spaces so everybody feels included. So
I'm going to take a moment and speak to the part of anyone's mind that is saying, I'm just going to do the things that don't involve a camera or something like that. I'm not interested in those things. If that is what you're thinking, I would love to hear from you. I want to hear about that more. And I'm not saying because I'm going to try to convince you otherwise, but I am a human and I know that there are different voices inside my own brain, but I do want to have a conversation with folks who are just going to say, if I have to work a camera to include someone, and I'm not going to do that. So please shoot me an email or call me on my phone and we'll talk about it. Thank you.
oh.
David,
David, you have a thought? Yep. And sorry, Reverend TJ, I'm stepping on you again.
That's all right. I'm short. It's easy to miss me.
I was just thinking before, not to be negative about it, but I just wonder, we have a wonderful connection here, and given that there's some are more into media and some are less so, but I wonder if there are people who are completely left out that we don't even think of, that we're not aware of, and if there's any way of reaching out to those members, certainly to begin with, of the congregation. How can we even identify those who may not be participating and bring them into the the cyber world, maybe kicking and screaming in some cases, but also in other cases, I would imagine saying, "Oh, I just didn't know how to do it, and thank you for showing me a path and a way and helping me with the technology," or something like that.
That's great. I wonder if I don't know how we can get the word out to people who aren't connected, but I know in one case, one of our members was totally in the dark, and another member went and sat with her and taught her how to do Zoom, and went and stayed with her through a couple of services, making sure she knew how to get in and everything. Yep. So yeah, that's a good question.
Agreed. And that constant question of who's on the outside of our circle, and how can we be more open to bring them in if they so desire, is a question I hope you'll keep asking over and over and over. So David, thank you for modeling that in this context.
And if I could share just a bit of the wisdom that the stewardship team kind of fell upon or discovered about 1.5 years ago when they were making a lot of these calls, just to kind of figure out how people are doing or connecting, and actually have really done twice, is really just if you think of someone you haven't seen in a little while and you don't have their number, just ask Suzette for it or ask me for it and just call them yourself. It's a good start, and it's just easier than wondering, and you just make a quick note, and a lot of times people just want to kind of catch up for a few minutes, but that's another piece I would just put out there, that it's something to think about. So
nice.
Yeah,
nice,
wonderful. Any closing thoughts, Dr. Michele?
I just find that I learn when I am with you all. Every time I take away lessons. I take away lessons from your passion. I take away from what you all teach. I take away from what you all model. More than anything, I take away from what you all model. And your dedication to this congregation, to Hawaiian values, and to just the greater good of creation really means a lot to me. So thank you. Thank you for that gift.
We look forward to when you can come visit.
Me too. When it's safe for you all, for all of us. Right now, the numbers where I am living, by the way, you all where you are, the numbers are doing much better. my area, we just dropped from the highest level of severe into the second highest level.
Oh, wow.
I do not want to bring anything to you all
No,
at
thank
all.
you very much. Thank you.
So I'm going to stay as far away as I can until it's safe for all of us. So, but thank you for that. I can't wait.
Well, thank you, Dr. Michele, and to all the teachers, which is all of you today, for this time and for this wisdom and for this gathering. I hope you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week ahead. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you, whether here or elsewhere, very soon. And remember, this Sunday after worship, there is a special congregational meeting and vote about some membership things. So I'll see you in worship and then afterwards.
Aloha.
Aloha, everyone.
So good to be
Aloha.
with you all.
Aloha.